What's up, YouTube? Jeff Brines here, back with another review, this time the RockShox Boxxer Ultimate on an Enduro bike. Before I get into this one, three things to note. First, I am riding a dual crown fork on a bike that's not technically approved for one, nor ideally set up for one, being it has a very wide head tube area. I'm comfortable with this risk and the downsides to this setup, but I wouldn't encourage anyone else to go out and do this. Second, I am assuming you followed my trials and tribulations with the Fox Podium throughout the year. If not, those reviews are linked in the description below, and Fox still has not fixed that fork. Finally, I know the trails I'm most often filming on are getting a little repetitive, something I'm going to work on in the future, but I had a really tight window for this test with fall coming and everything, and I wanted to try my best to control for environment, as the bro scientists like to say. Okay, on to the review. After a bunch of time on the Fox Podium, I couldn't help but ask the question, why not just ride a full-fledged downhill fork at this point? After all, a DH fork isn't really any heavier, it's proven at the World Cup level, and it's no more expensive than the Fox Podium. Thankfully, I have some very cool friends, and one of them offered his nearly new RockShox Boxxer Ultimate set at 180 millimeters of travel for me to ride this fall, and I couldn't resist the opportunity. Though the Boxxer is technically 10 millimeters more in travel, when lowered as much as possible in the crowns, it only changed my axle to crown a marginal amount, maybe 4 millimeters based on my measurements, and when it was under sag, I'm guessing it's about the same, at least for my level of discernment. From a setup perspective, the fork did take me a few rides to dial in, and I ended up running significantly more air pressure than the recommended setting at a touch over 210 psi. Depending on how sporty I was feeling, I'd run the low speed compression setting between 0, which is really the middle, using the RockShox system, and 3 clicks soft. Rebound was set between 5 and 7 from full out. High speed was generally open, and keep in mind, this was all for temperatures that didn't get above 55 degrees. If things got hotter, I do anticipate changing those settings. So, how'd the fork ride? Well, in a word, it's phenomenal. I'd say this is the best suspension fork I've ever ridden. What makes it so special? Well, it's kind of the culmination of everything. This is one of those products where no one single feature or system is catalyst to its outperformance. It's the collection of everything, all the systems, all the features, from the chassis to the bushing design, to the damper, to the air spring. The entire thing flat out works, and it's no surprise this fork has won at the sport's highest levels across the world's most demanding tracks. Let's get the elephant out of the way right off the top here. What is it like riding a dual crown fork on an enduro bike? Well, outside the aesthetic, which frankly I like, and my really tragic inability to do X-ups or bar spins, it's really no different than riding a bike, riding a single crown. Now, to be totally honest, there was one time while climbing through kind of a techie rock garden that I did hit the stop and I had to dab. That said, the Spire does have, like I said atop this review, a very wide head tube area, which does limit the turning radius significantly compared to most bikes. If you're installing this on a bike with a head tube that is designed around a dual crown, this won't be much of an issue. Overall, the dual crown is a big reason this fork is awesome, and I really think we need to go back to the drawing board as an industry and start reconsidering dual crowns for everything, call it 170 millimeters on up, which obviously starts with designing the frame with a dual crown in mind. Nothing wrong with having longer travel single crowns. I'm not saying they need to go away, especially for lighter riders looking to do X-ups and bar spins. Maybe those in really technical climbing areas like Moab or something where you're often swapping bars back and forth. But for most of us that are especially bigger, pushing hard on longer travel bikes, dual crowns just make a lot of sense, especially when you consider e-bikes. Steering precision, obviously very good. The fork doesn't fold under me while braking, and I can't tell you why, but the fork also doesn't have that harsh, prone to deflection kind of feel that the 38 and Zeb can have. I think this has something to do with the way the bushings work. I'll get into that in a minute, but I'll let somebody smarter than myself really explain why this might be the case. Another cool attribute is you can more easily change your head tube angle by just sliding the sliders stanchions up in the crowns or down. And a really rad attribute of a dual crown, the creaky head tube problem, it's gone. This is pretty well known in the dual crown space, but this has plagued literally every fork I've had over the last 15 years, every single crown that is. They've all creaked. From a bump eating perspective, this thing is a beast. The fork's action is crazy smooth, and thanks to a ton of work done by the RockShox engineering team, this fork handles load incredibly well. Unlike many other forks that bind under lateral force or twisting force, the Boxxer stays buttery smooth no matter what forces are going through the chassis. This is thanks to an entirely reworked bushing system that I'm surprised hasn't trickled into their other trail or enduro forks. The air spring, it's pretty interesting too and a bit atypical. I obviously ran more than double or about double the pressure I'd run in a 38 or a Zeb, and the feel is completely different, honestly. It's incredibly supple off the top with a lot of mid-stroke support, and as you push into it, it doesn't fall through and kind of hit a wall like a Zeb or 38 might with a lot of tokens. It really feels more linear in a really good supportive way. The damper, also great, no complaints. It's highly adjustable, and each click actually does something. For a bigger guy, I was really impressed with how high the fork rode in its travel, how controlled the system was, especially as speeds picked up. And while you don't need to be a World Cup athlete to really appreciate this, by no means am I one, I will say the harder I pushed, the more I appreciated the fork. Oh, and as a quick aside, the Boxxer has an excellent fender option too, unlike the Podium. So chalk that up to a small but important win as well. So what's not to love? Well, obviously the price. It's not cheap, though you can find them below $1,500, kinda. The weight, it's also notable. It's over a pound heavier than a comparable Zeb or 38, though again, it's only about a quarter pound, if that, more than the Fox Podium. I can't discern that on a 39, 40 pound bike. To add, you're going to need a new front wheel, and that the Boxxer, like the Podium, requires a 20mm front hub. No surprise, given this is a full-blown downhill fork. Again, it's the exact same situation as the Podium. And then there's the big problem, frame compatibility. Maybe the biggest drawback to the Boxxer in such an application. So then why don't we see more dual crowns on compatible pedalable bikes? Well, there's really not a good reason. When you consider the capabilities of the modern enduro bike, the rise in popularity of e-bikes, the ease in which a person can go find a truly gnarly dual crown worthy trail, and our broad acceptance of heavier 39, 40 pound enduro race bikes, there should be far more dual crown setups like this one out there. The lack of dual crowns really has more to do with stigma, with preconceived ideas of what a particular design means, not what its fundamental performance attributes are, or as the tech bros like to say, the quote-unquote first principles around a dual crown setup. If you heard me on the latest episode of the Vital MTB Inside Line podcast, you heard me talk about this idea that the market often follows culture, not the other way around. Culture drives what we buy and what we don't buy. This, in my opinion, is a prime example of that. It'll take some contrarian badasses, people that go out and win races on a dual crown setup, and I mean enduro races, or people that just have a better on-trail experience and talk about it. Gear reviewers that get over their biases and start to move the culture, and the market will respond. But as it stands now, I do think dual crowns in all applications above, like I said, let's call it 160, 170 millimeters of travel, it's the right call for a good chunk of the market, but not all the market. It is worth mentioning, I'm not saying anything new here, and this has been tried, at least to some extent, before. Specialized actually spec'd an in-house dual crown on their enduro lineup of bikes back in the early 2010s, and the now defunct Maverick, check that seat tube angle out, had a 5-inch dual crown on their trail bike way back in 2003. Also, MRP tried their best to make fetch happen, that's my Mean Girls reference, but it didn't really catch on either. Why might this time be different? Well, few things. First, we've been pedaling or okay pedaling 38, 39, 40 pound enduro bikes with DH tires. So what's another pound of non-rotating weight? The bike's geometry, the suspension performance, rubber, it's all kind of been cashing checks. The fork often can't write. Yes, that was a cheesy analogy. So maybe this will be, now's the time. And also, guys like me, with over a decade of head tube creaking problems, we're just ready to be done with it. So again, maybe it's time. Plus, Fox kind of opened the door with their Podium, which features a lot of the dual crown downsides, such as weight and price, with fewer upsides outside compatibility. So what do you guys think? Is this something we're going to see more of? Is now the time, finally, for dual crowns to trickle further into the ether of product lines? Or is Jeff just a freak and this will stay on the outskirts of bike specs? My bet is on the latter, though my hopes are on the former. Before we wrap this up, if you are interested in a Strava-like app with features specific to our sports, please go sign up for the waitlist at rallyapp.com, link in the description. It'll really help with my fundraising efforts. And as a reminder, I do have a Substack where I break down the business side of the industry. Again, link is in the description. Finally, if you like what I'm doing here, the best thing you can do is simply share it with a friend, get some views on this thing. I'd love to put more time into videos like this in the future, but I need that subscriber base to grow. Cheers, and I hope everyone is having a great fall.